What's going on, guys? So we are working on the bike. I'm going to actually show you all the upgrades that I've done to the bike, and I actually do all my own bike repairs, modifications, and everything myself. I have some of my tools over here, and I have everything I need to do pretty much everything on the bike, and I have the best wife in the world because she lets me do it here in the living room. She's actually cooking lasagna about 10 feet away from me. You want to say hi?
Hi.
And then I have my little daughter over here. You want to say hi?
Hi.
All right, so that's out of the way. We're going to kick it off and just show you some of the upgrades that I have done on this bike so far and give you my first impressions since having the bike for, I guess, now a little over a month. So she's got a couple pans of lasagna ready to go in the oven here. She is a fantastic cook. She's pointing at this one over here. I guess that's the one I'm supposed to look at.
This one's not ready.
Ready? Not ready. Okay, back at the bike. I have a little cat house back here. What you are looking at is a 2020, it might be a 21, I can't remember, but it is a Cannondale Moterra e-bike. This thing's super cool. When I got it though, you'd be surprised at how much money you pay for a high-end e-bike, but with relatively low-end components. So this specific bike came with SX level SRAM components, which is their entry-level components, and everything's pretty much been upgraded. What's kind of crazy, my GX shifter, which was added, actually broke. This portion right here, which shifts you to your higher gears, actually broke loose, and I was stuck in a very, very low gear, pedaling really, really fast to get back. Now, on this side, you can see that what is on here now is a SRAM GX, and this is specifically for e-bikes. What that means is that you only get single click or single gear change functionality on this side. You can't just mash your thumb down and shift to low gear super quickly from a high gear. You have to actually go through each gear. And the reason for that is the motor. The motor applies a lot more torque, and you can easily break your chain if you are trying to shift through multiple gears with one single press. So, GX e-bike components. All right, so taking a look here at the drive components, SRAM GX rear derailleur. This is a 1x12, so single speed up front, 12-speed derailleur here in the back, and this is going to be an 11x50 tooth derailleur. So the front cog has 11 teeth and the biggest cog has 50 teeth. Basically a very, very broad range. The biggest cog in the back is generally for going uphill. If you're going to be going over something really large or really steep, that's how you move yourself to the lowest gear, similar to a vehicle. So that's kind of where this can correlate to trucks, is lower gear, which is numerically a higher tooth number, gives you the torque you're looking for, the climbing power that you might need, whereas a higher gear, which is numerically a smaller tooth number or a lesser tooth number, is going to give you that harder to pedal kind of gearing. However, it's going to make you go faster with each pedal stroke. So that's kind of the best way to think about it. I have upgraded the seat to a WTB race seat. This is absolutely my favorite saddle to put on a bike. It is the most comfortable saddle I've used. The dropper post that was included with this bike is the same one that's on here still. It's made by a company called Trans-Z or Trans. I'm not exactly sure what you would call it. It's decent. It's not the best I've used. It's actually a relatively inexpensive dropper, but it works. I haven't had any issues with it. If I have a problem with it, then I'll likely upgrade or change that out. But so far, it works fine for me. Up front, the cockpit area, which is really nice, I have the Race Face Atlas stem. This is a 0-degree rise stem, and it's a 35mm extension. The stem that was on it was a Cannondale stem, and it extended out, I think it was like 60 or 55 or 60 degrees out, and it had a small rise to it, but I really, really didn't like it. And the Cannondale handlebars were aluminum handlebars, relatively heavy. I can't remember what the rise on those were, but I upgraded to the OneUp carbon handlebars up front. These are the new handlebars, and the reason I upgraded to these is because of you all. So I took a poll recently asking what people thought about handlebars, and the poll options that were included on there were actually all handlebars I already had, but I had taken off of bikes and I didn't know what route I wanted to go. But everyone said you got to try the OneUp because they really, really reduce arm pump, basically that vibration that rattles from the chassis of the bike into your arms when you're riding. You apparently get that more with 35mm stems when you're using it with a aluminum bar. So carbon reduces a lot of that vibration transfer into your hands and your arms, and the OneUp bar, because it tapers and it gets real thin right here on each side, reduces it even more. Now, a lot of people might say, does that weaken the bar? Well, OneUp has rated this bar not only for e-bikes, which tend to be about twice as heavy as non-e-bikes, but also for downhill and enduro racing, which means this is a very, very heavy-duty carbon bar. So, very cool upgrade. Again, 35 millimeter stem. That's the only size bar that OneUp currently makes, so they don't make the traditional 31.8. I have frame protection tape running up and down the sides, have the Cannondale in red on the sides of the frame itself and the logo right there. I have a mud guard right here. A big upgrade that I just completed was shortening all of the cables up front. So the cables were crazy long. They were really looping around here, and I shortened my hydraulic cables going to my brakes as well as my cables going to my shifter and my dropper. So everything's been shortened, and the light. And behind this piece of electrical tape right here, I've actually put a quick disconnect plug, so if I need to remove the light, I can do that without having to cut into the actual cabling. Aside from that, I have a big chunky cat that's walking by me right now. And I have my Shimano pedals here. These are a dual pedal, which is really cool. So it accepts Shimano cleats on this side to run clipless, and on this side it is a platform pedal. So I can basically flip it around depending on what type of shoes I have or what I feel in terms of comfort. I have a bottle cage here, and this is a side-loading bottle cage. And then on the other side, I have a OneUp tire pump. This is part of their EDC collection. I can pop that off, and I can throw a CO2 cartridge in. I can throw some of the other tools that they have in there as well, which is super cool. I may eventually add the OneUp stem right here, which is the EDC tool. You thread this out, and you can put tools inside of there as well. But I think that's it. I'm keeping the same tires that came on the bike because they actually provided a really good tire. This is the Minion DHR on the back and the Minion DHF on the front. Now, the DHR is not necessarily for rear and front like you might think, but a lot of people run the DHR on the front, so you can swap them around depending on what you're looking to do. Up front here, you can see that this is the DHR2. This is a 2.6 inch wide tire. It's the 3C technology Moterra. This is the EXO Plus protection, and it's the TR series, so it's tubeless ready, and I have already converted them to tubeless. If you're wondering what type of tubeless fluid I use Orange Endurance. And then I keep a spare tube on here because if you have a hole that the actual tubeless sealant can't fix, having a spare tube can really come in handy if you're on the trail, and I can use my OneUp pump, or I can use a CO2 cartridge that I keep inside of there with the valve in here to fill up the tire with CO2. Now, the single biggest upgrade that I've done on this bike is this Fox factory shock. Now, this is the new 38 millimeter series. So this is 38 millimeter stanchions here. On my Santa Cruz, it came with a 36. So this is the one up from that, at least in size. It does have the Kashima coated stanchions, which looks really, really nice. So you can control not only high and low speed compression, but also high and low speed rebound on this shock. And of course, this is an air shock. You can see I have 220 millimeter rotors up front. There's 200 millimeter rotors in the back. And one really cool feature that this bike is already kind of prepped for if you get the e-bike system with the battery on it is the light. So this actually has the light control built into it, and it came pre-wired for a light. All I had to do was find the correct light that operates off 12 volts to wire into it, and I was good to go. So the light was really easy to install, didn't take any time. I got this really, really cool Barfly 35 millimeter clamp that has a GoPro style mount, which connects to the GoPro style connector on the bottom of this light. And this is made by a company called Lenzine. I'm not exactly sure. Pretty popular in the biking industry. They also make my bottle cage as well, and the little saddle bag that I have on there. If you're asking what the bell's for, sometimes if you're going through trails and you have hikers on the same trails, you want to start hitting that bell if you're going to come around corners because you might accidentally run into them. So having a small bell to kind of alert other people on the trail that you're coming is pretty important. And then down here, the chain was actually replaced. So this was an SX chain. NX would have been the next step up, and this is now the GX series. Chains are probably one of the more important things to upgrade quickly because the chain itself actually improves in material and strength as you go up to a higher quality chain. Sometimes you reduce some weight, and some of them you'll actually see these center pins are hollow, which reduce weight. I really didn't care about the weight aspect of it. I mean, it's just marginally lighter, but this is a GX series chain. Now, the other really interesting thing about e-bikes as well is when you look at the only cassette that is e-bike approved from SRAM, it is going to be the NX series, only because it uses all steel cogs. When you move up to like a GX or an X01 or an XX1, you're moving up to one that is lighter in weight, and that's really the big difference. But they use a mixed material. With Shimano, it's steel, aluminum, and titanium, not in that order. With SRAM, it's steel and aluminum. And aluminum for your lower gears or your larger cogs. But with the NX series, it keeps everything steel, and that's why this is the only one that's actually e-bike approved by SRAM. The next big upgrade is going to be the wheel set, and that's actually going to be a very, very cool setup. I've actually replaced the front wheel. They're supposed to come in together, but UPS shipped them separately for some reason. I'm going with the new Effect R series. So the front one is their standard Effect R with the new trace hubs. The rear one is actually going to be the Effect R but e-bike rated series, which makes it a little bit stronger just because the majority of the weight on an e-bike is here in the back. So whenever you're buying components for an e-bike, you're going to start seeing a lot of components that are specifically rated for e-bike, and that's because of the additional weight. It's essentially like taking a rider and adding about 25-30 pounds worth of heft to that rider, and you know, that's what you get with an e-bike. So again, this bike weighs about twice as much as my Santa Cruz, even considering the fact that the majority of it's carbon fiber. This back area right here is aluminum, but the rest of the frame up here is actually carbon fiber. And if you go with a slightly lower version of this bike, everything is aluminum, and it weighs about 10 pounds more. The only thing I'm not sure if I'm going to upgrade anytime soon until it fails is my RockShox shock here in the center, mainly because this is one of those areas that I can fine-tune this as much as I really like it for my riding style. I don't need to upgrade that right away. If it fails on me, if it's something I need to replace, I will likely move to a Fox shock right here. But right now, this thing's been working really good, super plush. The Fox 38 was a huge upgrade over the 35 RockShox RL Gold that came on the bike. Both have the 160 mil stanchions on it. That RockShox just, to me, felt like garbage. Yeah, I really did not like the way that that front shock felt. So getting rid of that was really important. This thing feels super plush. Just, you feel like you can tackle anything with this shock. And it's stiff enough that I did not need to get the e-bike rated version of it to be supported on this specific bike. So this is a standard 38. This is a beefy shock, and it's absolutely amazing on the trails. But that's it for me so far. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. I know a lot of people like the bike content. A lot of people may not prefer it because it's not traditionally what the channel's about. However, at the same time, it's something that I think is interesting, and it's a little bit different to talk about. Anyways, guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.